what we'll want to do over the next 2 weeks is confirm the problem set. We want to make sure we are all clear and are aligned as a team on what the problem is that you're solving. One of the biggest challenges that face innovation teams is lack of clarity about the question they want to answer. If you can be clear about the question you want to answer, you can move much more rapidly. Also, as you're looking at innovation, what you're trying to do is you're not trying to, as the American slang says, boil the ocean. We don't want to solve every problem. We want to create a minimum viable product that will move this effort forward. So as we innovate, we want to do this very rapidly and in an agile way, adapting to conditions, can create a minimum viable product, test it, then do that again. And that's what agile really is all about. So today is all about clarifying that customer and business case interview using the slides that we sent out 2 weeks ago. So in a moment, you're going to go into a breakout. It looks like Omar has joined us. Excellent, Omar. Good to hear you and see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Sorry, I was a bit late.
No worries. We're glad to have you. In a moment, we're going to ask you to go into your team breakouts, and we'll have about 25 minutes in the team breakouts. You'll need to identify a scribe and a spokesperson, and you will need to create a slide. We've got to have a slide because this is a presentation and we do want to have this information. And that addresses those 4 key questions that I sent out on Tuesday. And these are 4 key questions that we're almost certain the executive panel is going to ask you about your project. We're going to ask you to answer the questions on the slide and be able to provide answers to the rest of the class. Because when you return, your presentation will last 5 minutes. You'll have about 5 minutes for your presentation, and then we'll have about 10 minutes for question and answer and insight. And the rest of the class will serve as the panel. So I'll moderate, okay? Your group will do their presentation. I'll moderate and probably ask a couple of questions. And the rest of the class will ask you questions about your project. All of this is in service of clarification. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Why is it important? What is the connection with the Digital One strategy? And here are the 4 key questions that we're going to ask you to answer. What is your project? How does this fit into the Digital #1 strategy? Who is the customer for your project? So who do we want to understand their pains and gains in order to create this product or project? And then my favorite one, and what does success look like? What does success look like? Something you might want to think about in this presentation is start putting together your story. One of the best ways to pitch or sell something is to sell it with a story. If you've ever watched Dragon's Den or a Shark Tank, they encourage telling us your story. Why is this important to the customer? Why is this important to Vodafone? Why is this important to you? These can all be a part of your presentation. And so everybody will present their slide and answer those questions. The other groups, they'll be the sharks, and they'll be the ones who will be asking you questions to help you clarify your project. I'm going to ask each team to present and moderate, and then we're probably going to cut the questions off, and then we want to get feedback from the presenting team, from the team that's doing the presentation, about what they learned and what they might take forward as we go into the next step, which will be ideation. And we're going to talk about that when we come back on the 16th and 18th of March. Then we'll go to the next group. The key thing, though, is that when we go into the breakouts, these 4 questions and your slide. So let me stop there and get any questions you might have about the process or what we're going to do next. Any questions?
Well, the breakout, Clemson, will last for 25 minutes, right?
Breakout is going to last for 25 minutes. So roughly I've got 45 after the hour, and we're going to bring everybody back in at 10 after the hour, at 10 after 3.
Okay.
Okay.
We should come back answering those 4 questions, right? On the slide.
That's correct. Yep. And the order, I thought I had gone over the order. I'm sorry. There we go. The order is going to be differentiators. You're going to go first. So Omar and Mohammed, you'll get things started. And then accelerators and then the mind blowers. All right. So Arena, if you would please, you can send everybody into their breakouts.
Great. I'm sending right now.
Thank you very much. I'll be coming around as well to answer any questions. Muhammad Islam, Tamer, excellent.
Hello, Clemson. Yes, everything is okay.
Okay, I hope that was helpful for you. And we'll get everybody back in about 15 seconds, and we'll be able to start with the differentiators. And differentiators, we are going to ask you if you can to come up on video and also present your slide, share your slides. So, Arena, we're going to need to grant them permission to share their slides.
Yes, they can share, no problems.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. And I think everyone is back. Yes. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to our clarifying opportunity. And again, what we'll do is in a moment, we'll start with the differentiators. And we want to listen with a, oh, here's Ahmad. And we want to listen with a critical ear, but a friendly voice. So as we are listening to others' presentations, be asking yourself, if I were an executive, what are the questions that I would be asking? How does this fit into the digital number one strategy? And thinking about things like deepening customer engagement, transforming our operational model, improving asset utilization, being the partner of choice, scale platforms. How does this fit? And we will ask everyone from the other groups to ask questions when the group presenting is finished. So we're going to start with the differentiators. So Mohammed and Omar, you are up. So if you'd like to show your slide, good to see you, Omar. If you'd like to go ahead and show your slide. If you look to the bottom of the screen, you'll see share screen. You can click on that.
I'm sorry, this is you want me to do this or Omar to do this?
Omar, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
I apologize for the American accent. Omar.
No problem.
Yeah, so sorry, just I was on mute.
Sure.
Okay, I'm just bringing up the slides.
Thank you. One of the exciting things about bringing up slides with Zoom is it changes everything on your screen. Okay.
Can you see my screen now?
We can you make it a little bit bigger? That would be helpful. I don't know if you can. It looks like you're doing this on your phone. So.
Yeah, because I can't access Zoom from the laptop. That's why.
Okay. I got you. Oh, this is very helpful. Now? Yeah, this is good.
Okay, if you want, I can send it to you over the WhatsApp. If you want to have it, this is another option if you want.
We'll get that after you're finished. Go ahead and start with this, and let's walk through it. And remember, everybody, at the bottom of your screen, you also have a reactions button. So you can say yes, you can say no, you can really like it, or really start crying over it. So feel free to use those reaction buttons as well. Omar and Mohammed, please.
Yes. Garhi, you're there?
Yes, I'm there.
You want to start?
Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. Briefly, our project is to be the one-stop shop for the biggest segment in the enterprise in Egypt, which is the SME and SOHO, to help them in their digital transformation. This includes providing these SMEs with software for their internal use, for HR, for finance, CRM, sales and marketing tools, e-commerce, digital payments, and so on. So this is the answer for the first question. Are we going to be going question by question, or shall I go through the whole presentation?
Yeah, go through the whole presentation at once, and then we'll be able to answer it all as a whole. So yes.
Okay,
please.
moving forward.
I can add something here. I can add something in this area, in that the idea behind this part for the software for internal use is that we want to help the customer in his internal in his internal processes. So we're talking about his workplace. So we want to digitize his workplace, and we want also to help him digitize his customer. So that's why we bought it into those two elements. That one is for software like HR and finance and so on that can help him internally inside his company, and the sales and marketing that can help him out to reach out more for his customers.
Wow. Okay. That already brings a question for me, but let's keep going with your presentation and we'll come back to the questions. This is exciting.
Okay. Thank you, Omar, for this.
Thank you.
So moving to the second question, how does this fit the digital strategy? We have two pillars in our digital strategy, which digital customer. So we are providing tools to help the customer transform digitally, internal and external, as Omar just said. And the other pillar is digitize Egypt. So in line with Egypt's digital vision 2030 in digitizing country and companies, taking into consideration that the SMEs and SOHO are the biggest base in these companies in Egypt. Moving to the third one, who is the customer for your project? Obviously, it's the SMEs and SOHO base and population in Egypt. What does success look like in your project? So we decided to use the end in mind PR, which we would like to say at the end of our project, which is Vodafone helped digitizing X number of SMEs and SOHO in Egypt this year. That's it.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to hold my questions and I'm going to ask the accelerators and then the mind blowers to go first. So Tamer, Amar, what might your questions be about this project?
Thinking about it.
I'm sorry, Amar, say again.
No, I'm actually thinking about questions because, to be honest, like we have been briefed on the project several times before, so I think I don't have many questions now, but I'm trying to figure if I need any clarification.
Okay. No, thank you. Tamer?
Yes, so far no question, but it's a one-stop shop for SME and SOHO, just to have all the activities for SME and SOHO. That's right. Everything I need when I'm SME and SOHO customer, I can go for this spot and I can finish everything I want.
In the
right?
digital area. In the digital area.
Without assistance, without any person assistance, you mean?
Yes.
Can you?
You mean that the process itself will be digital?
Yes, I understood that it's a digital interaction between the customer and the machine, so no personal interaction in between.
So let me give you a live example from an e-commerce startup who became either SOHO or SME according to their size. and now they need to digitize their workflow and operation. So they need handheld for the sales to be reflected on their ERP system, for example, to have this paperless and with digital money if they can, with their network of merchants, to digitize and remove the cash moving risk on the streets. All these solutions. That's what we mean. I think, Tamer, if this answered your question, and Omar, if you need to add something.
Yes, my question is what's the difference between this project and a digital store? Because I'm working in retail and we have a digital store. So far, we're working on a digital store. So I didn't catch the difference between the idea of having a dedicated place for SMC and Soho. What if we can have a general store can serve part of it at the SME and Soho, and the rest of the store is a
and by the way,
customer.
Tamer, we don't mean shop as a retail shop. This is not what we mean.
Yes, I know. I know the difference between them, but I'm speaking about the current situation, which serve the same purpose. I'm not challenging the idea. By the way, I love it so much, but because we are working on something like this in a shop, and it can be located in everywhere. We can have an we call that a self-help machine that can serve the customer and doing everything for him. It can be located everywhere. So.
Yeah, I get your point, Tamer. I understand your question. Let me clarify what we mean here. What we mean is that this is not something to serve the SME and Soho customer. This is not something that to serve him from Vodafone side. No, this is something that we will provide for the customer. In other words, we will sell him the HR system, the financial system, the e-commerce system. We will provide the SME and Soho company with those softwares that he can use for his company internally. It's not related to Vodafone. It's a bundle that we will be selling to the customer.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I understand it. Yes. Okay.
That is very helpful. That last piece you gave me, Omar and Garhi, your story about the Soho or SME, that clarified it for me. Because I was kind of having some of the questions that Tamer was having. Is this going to be a brick and mortar store that someone will come into, or is this all done online? And it sounds like it's all done online. Is that correct?
Yeah, the initial concept,
Exactly.
we want to make it online. Everything is digital. However, when moving forward, we will check the doability of something like that to make sure we want to make it digitally, that the customer does not have to interact with anyone. I do not have to call anyone to get this product. I can go online and purchase it.
I got it. And what they are purchasing is actually either a singular, almost an HR or a CRM bundle that they could put into their ERP to make it in a seamless way to digitize it. Is that correct?
That's what we're thinking of. Actually, the part that it to be seamlessly integrated is a bit difficult.
That's why I put it in there.
Yeah, just to
That's
be honest.
Tough.
Yeah, I don't think we will be capable of doing that. However, what we want to do is that there is already a product that Vodafone sells. It's just launched a couple of months ago, where they have, it's like a marketplace. And in this marketplace, they have products, software, like the HR software and the financial and the CRM that are already there provided by Vodafone. So actually what we're going to do is that we're going, instead of having them only this way, we're going to bundle them. What we're thinking of actually, but we still haven't matured this thought, that we're going to bundle them together into different streams. For example, it will be a sales bundle, a marketing bundle, an HR bundle, a financial bundle, and we will be coupling it with other products and services that Vodafone offers, such, for example, the other things that the customers need, like he might need a voice line, he might need a handset, he might need other products to set up his office. He might need a consultation. He might need these kind of things. We are going to enrich the proposition with.
Brilliant. And I can see where the next step, you start doing ideation, you identify specific customers and perhaps specific bundles, and you paint a picture for how those things come together. I think that that
Yes.
will be very helpful with this, because just your explanation's been very helpful. And I want to make sure that the mind blowers get a couple of questions in. So Ayman, Amir, Islam, any questions from you?
I have one question, yes. I understand there will be like one portal or central portal for the SMEs and SOHOs that they can ask for services and pay according to and it's similar to the public cloud that we have and VHub. Am I understanding right?
It will complement the VHub. It's not the VHub,
Okay.
because actually that's what I was saying, that we already have the VHub. But this idea is that I want to start creating use cases or tailored bundles to target the customers themselves. So I don't want to keep it as he goes onto the VHub, he purchases the different, he sees what software he needs.
Not
actually,
infrastructure, I mean, and you mean service, product and services, not infrastructure, yeah. But are you going to have this portal will be at the end, will be integrated, for example, with a CRM application owned by Vodafone, an HR or ERP or what?
The applications themselves will be owned by the vendors. We are going to be the intermediate person.
Okay.
We're not, for example, as currently that is there, we are going to have the current HR, for example, system providers, and they are going to have, they are the ones that are going to run the software. They will do the implementation and so on. Because actually we as Vodafone, we do not have the capability, but not the capacity to do so. Because this is a lot of work, so it's better to outsource it than to do it ourselves.
Oh, I think the challenge, or the most part that will be challenged even by the EXCO, who will be the suppliers and how the pricing model will go. Is it based on subscriptions or revenue sharing model? Or I think maybe this will be a bit challenging.
Was actually, I think, our thought about it is that we are fortunate because we currently have the VHub product that already offers the software is there and up and running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize the VHub concept and add more features to it and put it in the shape of bundles that are sufficient for the customer needs. So I'm going, for example, to have the bundle, the sales and marketing bundle. So I'm going to put the e-commerce software along with, for example, Vodafone Cash and maybe other digital payments that can be integrated. And I'm going to provide it as a full proposition end-to-end for the customer. And it's going to be named commercially as a sales and marketing bundle.
Okay. The one last question, maybe it's a bit similar to what Clemson asked. Yep. If, for example, in the CRM domain, you are going to, for example, to market Microsoft 365 Microsoft Dynamics CRM application. What if, for example, Microsoft does not provide APIs for this, and you need to direct the customer to the Microsoft portal itself? Are we going to introduce the whole service end-to-end, or you may redirect the customer to the third party?
Actually, he needs to be directed to the third party at a certain point, because the third party is the one that will do the installation for him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he has to work with to see the third party at a certain point in time, but the onboarding and the experience itself, until the third party comes in and does the software implementation and so on, this will be the case. It will be totally Vodafone, but the support, first level of support, through Vodafone. The sales are actually going to be through Vodafone.
Great.
Excellent. And I want to thank everybody for your excellent questions and differentiators. Really good job. I really appreciate your insight as you're seeking to clarify these, because there were a lot of really good clarifying questions. And as I'm walking away, I'm saying this almost like you would play the role of a prime contractor, where I'm building the house and I'm going to bring in somebody to put in the kitchen, somebody to put in the bedroom, somebody to build a garage, and it will all be under my structure. So you can be a one-stop shop to me, but I'm going to find the right vendors for you. And I think that that's a very powerful model. Also has some challenges, just like Iman said, especially when it comes to not only service, but security. So that may be something to consider as we go into ideation.
Okay. I believe we have another challenge that Ayman also brought up that we are currently thinking about, is that how is this going to be different than the current vHub that we're currently offering? How will it complement it and not, how will it take it to another level to make it more useful for the customer?
Brilliant. No, that's exactly why we're doing this. I could not have asked you to do a better job, both for the questions and for the presentation. So thank you very much. And we're going to switch to the accelerator. So Ahmad and Tamer, if you would share your screen and show us and help clarify your project for us. The differentiators got us off on a really good foot there.
Okay, just 1 second. I'm trying to share screen here.
It's coming up.
Okay, so now can you see the screen?
We can.
Okay, so you can see the slide as well, right?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, so Tamer, do you want to start? Or do you want me to do it now?
I guess you can start and then I can add the new.
Okay, sure. So first, for the idea of the project, what is our project? So our project is a digital tool. Basically, it's an application that covers all the related activities, whatever business or non-business, for Vodafone employees. So they can have one single interface and they use it throughout the day, whatever this is a business day or not even a business day, even on weekends. So this is the idea. How does it fit our strategy? Digital number one. So it's actually building on the strategy because it uses the digital transformation. So we're trying to unify all the platforms we currently have. So we have different platforms. We have the Vodafone employee application and other application where you can use it to navigate through stuff related to Vodafone. So we're unifying this and we're consolidating everything in one place. So all the day activities are in one tool instead of the scattered system we currently have. Who are our customers? So they will be Vodafone employees because at the end this is an internal tool. How does the success look like for our project? So we want to have a high engagement with Vodafone employees. So we want them to download the application and also to use it, to have a good dependency on this application. So we want them to find it able to fulfill all their activities and to cover all the needs. And from a technical standpoint, we want the app to be reliable, simple, easy, and useful.
Excellent. I like that simple, easy, and useful app idea. That's helpful. And just to clarify, Amar, this is only for internal to Vodafone, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So
maybe if the idea can work for Vodafone employees, maybe then we can use it and we can try to use it for other corporates as well. But for now, we're trying to make it only for Vodafone employees, building on the systems we currently have.
And I really like that idea of building on systems you currently have. And we're going to start with the mind blowers first. So Ayman, Islam, Amir, your questions about the internal all-inclusive app.
I have one question, but first, if Amir or Islam have questions, let's start with them.
Just my question, do you have a plan to implement this application? It's a very nice idea. Do you have a plan for having this application external outside Vodafone?
To be honest, I think this is like our next step. but we're like piloting it first for Vodafone employees, and then if it's showing success, so we can get the learning from Vodafone internally, and then I think we can move to sell it to other companies as well.
I want to add something again. I'm sorry for the bad sound because I'm walking in the street. The service can be a corporate service because it can be we can sell this service for our corporate SME customers based for their employees, because the idea is unifying the usage of business actions and non-business actions in one interface will facilitate our life. So imagine that you can review all your works, all your mails, all your projects in one simple application. Again, you can have all your non-business actions like, for example, reserving your cinema seat, reserving your car parking, searching for something in a mall, something like this. It can be help our life.
Tamer, that was very, very helpful. And as we think about our presentation, that might be the story you want to start with. Imagine this, get somebody in that mindset of thinking outside of what's happening today and what could be. Very powerful story, Tamara, and thank you for that. Ayman, I think you had a question.
I have one question related to the services provided. For the project statement or the first question, it didn't mention the services, so I didn't recall it. If you can please tell us some example of the services provided.
For example, the service, let me start with the business service. So because in my team, for example, if we are working in one project, so we can share all the advancement or all extra miles that we are taking in this project. So I can review where we stop in such project. We can review all needed documents. We can review everything like the Vodafone app that you can review your HR self-service on it. It's an application for all what you need in your business, in all your day business.
But I mean, it provides same functions or same services to the whole employees, or for example, each team can tailor what he needs.
Each team will tailor what they need because each team has a different scope. So technology team, for example, they can have all the sites spread all over Egypt in this application and review. They can see the pulse of the tower and the network insights and something like this. For sales team like my team, I can see all my sales figures and all my retail figures, market share, everything on it. Okay. Despite of having some different mails from some different resources, and I have to collect them all in one place.
Okay.
Excellent. Great. No. And Ayman, thank you very much for those questions. We want to get the questions from Omar and Garhe as well.
I have a question. I just, it's a bit, I'm a bit less confused. Is this application for, you're going to have an application that aggregates other applications into it, or you're going to create something that is new to serve something that is not there? I'm just a bit mixed up in this.
I guess aggregation for some applications inside one application will be one step, and we have to create our own services inside our business, because you can aggregate all the non-business applications in one application, and it can be used like a marketing for those applications. So once, for example, let me check. Visita, for example, Visita is an application for searching for a doctor. For example, you can be integrated in the application, and they can pay to just be added to the application. It's a sort of revenue generation for us.
Okay.
I don't know if I answer your question or not.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. And I just, from my thought, I think one of the questions that might be asked is that how is this going to be different than having the other applications scattered around? Because I think it's easy to manage, because on your phone you have the applications, all the applications there. So I think the challenge would be, what is this going to do different than the current features that the current applications offer?
I guess being organized in one single directory, it will be as edge for this application, because I'm personally suffered from searching for application and going for updates, and I have so many applications in my phone So imagine with me, if you have all your application in one single application, and you can have search for what you need anytime. Again, it's embedded. They serve each other. So once you are searching for example, a pharmacy, for example, you can see all what's related to pharmacy or medicine in one side. It's a directory generation. I imagine it's like this by now.
Okay, thank you.
No, very helpful. Really good questions. And Tomer, I really appreciate your answers. It's sounding more to me like an internal, almost WeChat, where we have a mega app with a number of different applications that are all linked together. And
Yes.
That's very, very powerful. And I want to make sure, Garhi, any questions for Tomer or Amar?
Well, I don't have a question. However, what came in my mind is it's very interesting. Yani, if I'm in Vodafone as an employee and I have one app will serve even 80% of my interest in the application, I will be more than happy. What came in my mind is to make any payments in this app through Vodafone Cash only, exclusive. And then if this app went successful, we can sell it in our project for the SMEs and so on. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. There's great potential for this as well. And I want to thank everybody for their questions. Tamer and Amar, any comments back to the group about what you've heard today?
No,
And for me, I
nothing
have
from us.
no question for me again.
Okay. Very good clarifying questions and really appreciate those thoughts. And we're going to move to the mind blowers. So I'm on Amir and Islam. If you would share your screen, please.
Okay, I can
Sure.
share. And well, Amir, if you can, if you like to present, I'll share the screen.
Excellent. We can see your screen. Thank you.
Amir, if you'd like to start.
Go ahead, Ayman. Go ahead.
Okay. First, about what's the project. Mainly, it's for building or providing omni-channel experience to customers, which will provide unified and seamless customer experience across all channels, whether it's physical or online. So simply, we are transforming from the current or the existing multi-channel experience we have currently in Vodafone to an omni-channel experience. And quickly, the difference between the two multi-channel is to have different experiences or different activities across all channels, but they are the same. Maybe you have one product sold over one channel and not the other, and you have some services provided over channels and not the other. This is the multi-channel. However, omni-channel means to have all channels provide the same experience, same products, and everything are integrated and centralized. How does this fit the digital strategy? For the customer experience, we're providing a digital experience that's seamless across all channels. From the digital Vodafone, we are digitizing all experiences and touch points. So we are attracting and pushing the customers more into using the digital channels through automations and robotics. Digital Egypt, I think it's maybe not directly related. For the third question, who are the customers? All customers, all Vodafone customers, because customers usually deal with Vodafone through different touch points. So we are going to transform all the channels we have now. For the fourth question, how does success look like? For the customer experience, we have three main pillars: customer experience and revenue, maximizing revenue and reducing cost. For the customer experience, we are providing the customer with real-time experience, seamless across all channels, and providing contextual products and tailored pricing for each customer. The customer will be able to switch between different channels and resume the activity. For example, I can start an order on one channel and resume the other channel. I can order a product online on the website and collect it from the physical store and so on. Also, the customer care or retail agents will be able to predict the reason of customers, even they are either calling on the call center or visiting the store. I can in advance understand the reason behind this visit or this call and proactively provide the help for the customer. And the customer will have an advanced self-services mainly over the phone or using chatbots and so on. So we'll have an advanced self-services across different channels using automations and robotics. For the second pillar, for the revenue generating, we'll be able to understand the customer behavior and upsell to the customer the relevant products, whether online or even when the customer is visiting the physical store and waiting in the queue for his to be served. Yani we will be able to approach the customer and upsell different products for him. And finally, for the cost reduction, we'll be able to reduce the footprint on our stores, reduce the calls, the visits to the physical store and the calls over the call center. So we'll be able to reduce the manpower for them. And that's it.
Wow. Just one question before we move to Gary and Omar to begin the other questions. Can you give me one example of the channels that we would bring together in this omni-channel experience? What channels really are we thinking about here?
We have different channels. We have, for example, the physical channel, which is the retail stores of Vodafone. We have the online channels like a website and mobile app. We have some legacy channels like the USSD, for example, when you dial *123# and so on.
In addition to the customer care.
And customer care IVR for sure, sorry, and chatbots and so on.
Okay, no, I understand. And I'd also think in terms of the revenue aspect, because of the information, because of the data that you'd be receiving, that through some type of AI engine, you'd be able to develop analytics to be both predictive and proactive about providing opportunities for selection and purchase as well.
Yeah, the advanced level is for sure using data science and so on, but simply or more simpler approach, you can like build a rule-based model, which currently we have already in Vodafone. And for example, if the customer based on some triggers or some conditions, I can provide a ready-made product for him. And this product is a customized or tailored product. I can play with the price and quotas and so on, and the validity time. And you can play with different parameters to provide different flavors of the same product for different customers.
Excellent. So let me move to Omar and Garhi. Your questions for the omni-channel experience.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the revenue part, Ayman and Amir Islam, what is the difference here between this and the MBA, the next best activity, which I think is upselling to the customer the relevant products in retail and customer care, I think, and even we are going further to the aggregators and so on.
Great question again.
It's very close, Garhi. We may build on top of MBA. At the end, it's two parts. You have the back end or the engine itself that gets some inputs and triggers and some information about the customer and detect or decide the best offer for the customer. We will be reusing the same concept. However, the other part, the channel side, maybe will be more advanced. And for example, currently, if you visit a retail store, when MBA will be offered to you when you reach the agent, when you have the queue number and you get your order and you start talking with the retail agent, he will be opening, for example, the CRM application and getting the MBA offer for you. What we are thinking of, while you are sitting and waiting for the queue time, you will be approached by either push notifications on the app or by SMSs for upselling our products.
Exactly.
So it's more advanced in the channel part, yeah.
Yes, the difference here, Garhi and Omar, is the way we upsell on a proactive approach rather than having people asking to pull their offers through the call centers and stuff. So the difference here is that you're going to push the need or the offer or the product itself that suits the customer need, as well as this should be done automatically or proactively, rather than the MBA, which is totally reactive.
I can give one example here, Amir. Also, we mentioned the retail use case, but one example for example, Garhi, when you are calling the call center IVR, he can offer you some products when you reach the agent. However, what we are thinking of, while you are waiting on the call to be served, you will be approached by some upselling offers.
Okay, so it's more clever, more or less.
More
Yeah,
clever
exactly.
and more proactive. Yes, it's a push.
Okay. Okay.
This is in addition to some other benefits, يا جرحي. يعني I mean, in the call centers, for example, we cannot relate the other touch points, what the customer went through the whole journey. So whenever you call the call center now or the retail agents, they don't know what exactly happened in the past before giving you what's going on now. So in addition to the push or the selling experience, the selling part, I mean, the customer experience here will also occupy another part of the project by relating all the channels together, having the real need based on the history of visiting. Okay.
Yeah, one example
So
for
the
what Amir is
campaigns,
mentioning.
Okay.
Yeah, one example for Garhi, when you are calling the agent, you will not be able to understand or to know that you yesterday, for example, you visited the store and was asking for some handsets. However, using this experience and the triggers or the logs that will be collected from all the system, the agent over the call center will be able to know that you visited the store yesterday asking for some handsets.
Exactly.
So he can offer for you some products.
And that might be the story you want to start your presentation with. Every time we've been doing these questions for every group, we've gone into some type of description that was a great story. So as we're thinking about this presentation, it's think about what would happen if an agent was able to have all of this information available to him and be proactive in discussing something with the customer. And so when we think about the customer experience, we are thinking about the person purchasing. But to me, one thing that came out through this conversation from a great question from Garhi is maybe your customer is that agent. Maybe your customer is that person who's talking to the customer. So just something to think about as you move forward. We've got about 1 more minute to get some questions from the accelerator.
Okay.
So
very good point, Clemson, on maybe the customer is the agent. This is a very good point. I like it.
Oh, shukran. Thank you. Amar, any questions from the accelerator?
I have no question. It's just a feedback. The idea is very good, and we are in very need for it because we are missing so many opportunities of selling opportunities. Because, for example, like what mentioned before, once the customer is searching for a handset over the website, for example, and he visits the store, there is no agent. And then once I'm standing in the store, I don't know that the customer is searching for over the website, and I missed the opportunity to offer the iPhone for him.
Exactly. So, and this also triggers the cross-selling.
Yes.
On the online and website especially.
That's all.
Thanks, Yatem.
No, thank you very much, Tamer. And from our friends, the Mind Blowers, so I'm on Amir and Islam, what have you learned today from the questions you were asked from everybody else?
Oh, I believe that the most important part, especially what you mentioned, I believe presenting or demonstrating the idea needs to be a bit different. I believe we can start by showing some use cases. For example, I start by showing some use cases, what we mentioned, and then illustrate or explain the idea behind. But usually this started, it doesn't give the real flavor of the project.
Oh yeah, and this type of questioning is not going to lead to that. We just wanted to get the information out, and this has been tremendously helpful for me. And Amir, did you have a comment? I want to make sure I heard.
No. Adding on what Ayman just mentioned, I think we need to show what if we don't have this in an era of a digitized and connected channels. And as Tamer just mentioned, we're losing a lot in matter of revenues, experience, and stuff due to lacking all these tools. So I agree with Ayman.
Yeah, you want, and thank you very much, Islam, because, and Amir, is that we want to demonstrate what we are missing, or as we like to say in American slang, what we are leaving on the table. Is if we don't have this, we're leaving this on the table for someone else to do. Instead, we should be doing this because we have the back end, because we understand that the agent needs this type of information, and it's a great service to our paying customer. Thank you very much, all three teams. This was very exciting for me, and I've learned a great deal. In our next time, so we're going to meet again later in the month, we want to be thinking about ideation. So I think we've got some great clarification questions, and we want to be thinking about, how do we make this happen? And that'll be our next step. But now we're going to move to our speaker. Yeah. Uh-oh. There we go.
جرحي
We're gonna move to our speaker because I think Manisha has joined us. So if you would go ahead and stop sharing. We've got Manisha Gupta, who's going to be joining us right now from Oracle, and she's coming up on audio. And the exciting thing about hearing all of the projects is now we all have three lenses that we can look through. The consolidated app lens, the omni-channel lens, and that digital services contracting lens that we can use to listen to the presentation. Do we have Manisha yet, Arena?
Yes, she's here.
Okay. Looks like she's connecting to audio now, is what I have. And we'll come up on chat. As we, it's interesting, as you hear that much information, sometimes it takes a little while for that to process and to come up with other ideas. As you come up with other ideas, feel free to put them into chat. As you come up with other questions that would help your colleagues have a better product and a better project, feel free to put those into chat so they can have them. Also, you can WhatsApp them as well. And it looks like Manisha has joined us. Hello, Manisha.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm Clemson Tarragano, and welcome to Silicon Valley and Vodafone F Accelerate program. Wonderful to see you.
Likewise, Clemson, how are you doing this morning? Where are you based, actually? You're all everywhere these days.
Absolutely. And where are you calling from, Manisha?
I'm from the Bay Area, the Silicon Valley itself.
Excellent. We were talking about that earlier, as some people refer to Silicon Valley as a company. It's Silicon Valley. Some people as a region. Some people as a mentality, as a mindset, that Silicon Valley mentality.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So Manisha, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Sounds like a plan, Clemson. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. Okay, am I audible enough? Am I clear?
Yes, I've got you. And if anybody can't hear, just let us know.
All right.
Yeah, clear. Thank you.
Very, very nice to meet all of you from Egypt. I believe it's evening, right, in Egypt right now?
It's about 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Well, thank you. Thank you for spending your time with me instead of with your families at 5 p.m. Really appreciate that. In Silicon Valley, we don't have any ending to the work. So I guess here, the day starts 6 a.m. and then ends at 12, whatever it has to end. It's the land of pioneers. And I migrated from India about 21 years back. And this has become part of my life and my culture. So I would say I do have a very quick glimpse of the team because Silicon Valley, the company, sent me the details of the folks who might be on the call today. But so let me just do a quick check. I believe there's a cross-functional team from Vodafone Egypt. There are people from finance. There are people from consumer. There's people, I believe, from engineering. Basically, multiple teams, and you're trying to build a culture of innovation and understand how to move leadership and teams in that direction. So that's the premise with which I prepared my talk today. Let me know if you have any other suggestions or ideas on what you would like to talk about. And the second thing I'll say is I have a deck. I speak pretty constantly. I'll talk you through with what I've done in my background, but I do teach in a couple of colleges in the Silicon Valley. There's a UC Davis. I've given lectures in Stanford as well, and I'm a full-time working professional. So I am a full-time working mom. So multiple aspects of it. I have a deck. We don't have to feel compelled to move through the deck. The idea really is to answer the questions that the team has here, right? And I'm pretty, I can talk about several aspects of innovation. So would be great if we can make it interactive. I think I caught on, it seemed like it was pretty interactive, Clemson, when you were talking. So that's great. But yeah, bring your questions. The goal is to respond to your questions more than making sure my presentation makes it through. So anything anybody would like to talk about? Or we can jump and then we can keep asking questions as we go. Yeah? Okay. All right. So I am going to share my screen. Let me know if you're able to see it.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, it's clear.
And Clemson, you see the full screen, right? Not, yes, okay, cool. You know, home computers, that's another challenge. They all have makeshift environments. All right, cool. So, and I'm going to try to keep an eye on the video as well, but I get very passionate talking about innovation. So just hold me, stop me. It doesn't hurt me if you tell me, you know, change the direction and the last minute, nothing hurts. So just feel free to make this session your own, okay? All right, so I am Manisha Gupta. I am head of product management for a product called HCM Analytics. And you might be familiar, analytics, this notion of measuring things has been very, very prevalent in the industry, especially like finance, you know, so anybody in finance has been living with Excels or measuring stuff for centuries. Sales and marketing started measuring it. Very recently, I would say about a couple of decades back, this notion of applying analytics to human capital management also started. And there's a lot of reason. In fact, it was a very innovative stride, especially when big data or, you know, machine learning, data science, if you've heard of these terminologies, when we started looking into social media, what happened was I started telling you as a human being much more than you would sometimes ask of me. So if you Google each other's names, sometimes we have social LinkedIn profiles and Quora profiles and all that. The bottom line is step by step, multiple innovation happened, which made it possible for us to understand human beings from a data perspective, both because we started giving more data to each other using mostly social media profiles and blogs and responding to queries online, etc. And second, big data made it possible for us to measure that. And with those two coming together, this field called people analytics or HR analytics or HCM analytics grew. And I've been part of this this movement for probably like 15 years now. Earlier in Silicon Valley itself, we used to have these 20 people will get together and talk about, hey, should we call it people analytics, or should we call it, what should we call it, and how should we go about it? So I remember those days, and now if I see the conferences, it's all full of, this is the notion, this is the way you measure it. So it's been like, I would say I'm living innovations, and it's exciting. So I thought I'll give you a quick glimpse on who am I from a professional perspective. The last company, Cafe Press, here is a company where, again, a very early stage, 2001. Yeah, so Cafe Press here. So 2001, that time frame, this was the first company online which was bringing in designers and marketeers together. So I have no ideas. Let's say I'm a designer. I can design amazing stuff. I have no idea how to sell. You are a seller. You can sell anything, but you don't know how to design. So this concept of two-way marketplaces, like eBay was picking up, Amazon was actually picking up, believe it or not, 99, 2000, that time frame, and Cafe Press also was picking up. I led products for that company, then moved on and joined LinkedIn. If you've played with jobs listings, there were 3 team members who led that growth. And I would say I can take claim for making the first million job listings in LinkedIn. So Cafe Press was developing a product, right? When I joined LinkedIn, the notion of job listings existed. But how do you grow that business? That is also innovation. So it could be innovation you can think of in terms of a new product, a new process, could be a new solution, could be a new feature, right? So innovation is really a new way of doing something. It could be something new, something old, and we'll talk about what innovation means and how we can apply it. Then I joined eBay. I led the global eBay advertising group from a product management perspective, and now recently I'm with Oracle. So that's who I am professionally. From an entrepreneur perspective, I did start a company called At One Place. This was between Cafe Press and LinkedIn. It got acquired. Then I was a co-founder and then eventually became an advisor for Wish Express. This is Hardy Fresh. I'm an advisor here, and Tinway is another startup which is based in India, and I'm in the board there. So that's another thing. From a social perspective, there's a lot of charity organizations. Charity Days was something we founded, and this is another center where I teach. This teaching is primarily for the benefit of people who can't afford to learn on their own. And then from an education perspective, this is India. Did my undergrad, and then from Berkeley Haas, I learned the finance. And from Wharton, I did my MBA, where I learned a bunch of stuff, quite a lot of gamut of things, right? So that's who I am. I share it so you have perspective, and you can, hopefully ask more questions and make it relevant for yourself. So we're going to start talking about culture first, and why is everybody talking about culture, right? Like, because if I would say if anyone is comfortable, whether you type it in the chat or respond back, would anybody like to share with me what your perspective is, in terms of culture of innovation?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat the question again? Sure.
Yeah, Ayman, nice to meet you. So, we're trying to talk about culture of innovation and teams and leadership, right? So I'm curious to see from your perspective in Vodafone, like, how are you thinking about any of these words? What is innovation for you? What is culture for you? Like, why are we meeting today? Why did you think of having a session on this topic?
I believe, and as we discussed last time, for the culture, the way we work, the way we interact and deal with each other inside the organization. And we have our own culture inside Vodafone since a long time. Mm-hmm. And for the innovation, I believe it's a mindset inside each organization to think of new things or new ways of doing business and new ways of dealing with our customers, and even for our internal processes.
Perfect. Great. So culture is something to do with how we interact with each other, and innovation is a new way of doing something, right? So I would say probably the most simple and clear definition I've heard. So great. Thank you for sharing it. Now, let's just talk a little bit about why every leader or literally every company has been talking about culture, especially in the advent of pandemic, right? Because things became, sometimes when you slow down in life, things become crystal clear, because otherwise we are all running pretty fast sometimes. So these studies are not mine. Some of them, this one is from Deloitte. I thought I'll share with you some perspective on what, the top 5 firms are talking about it. So more than 90%, as you can see, the dark blue is executives, the light blue is employees. They did a survey, right? And what Deloitte found out was more than 90% of the executives, they believe culture is instrumental for business success, which is, seems logical. The key though is that, there is a big disconnect when it comes to culture, right? So again, the dark blue is executives and the light blue is employees. And what you can see here is that at some of the questions, senior leadership regularly communicate with my company's core values or whatever. These are engagement surveys, you might have done it. Companies sometimes do it on an annual basis, 6 monthly. Now we are doing it on a regular, ongoing basis. But the bottom line is, everybody believes it's important. At the same time, there's a big disconnect between when you ask a leader for, how is my culture flowing, and they might be a little bit more optimistic than when you ask the employees. And that is why the studies like you are undertaking for shifting the culture and making it a very conscious choice, both at top and at the bottom, is becoming, common, right? So in fact, I'll share with you a story of us driving grassroots innovation very recently. And actually, I led that initiative within the Oracle Analytics organization. And it wasn't easy, but it was very successful. And so I'll walk you through, if you're interested, on step by step how we made it happen, actually during the pandemic, right? So everybody wants it, but there's a disconnect. And what happens because of the disconnect? So culture becomes the most significant barrier to growth because there's a delusion, right? And it's good to accept it. It is not natural, because even at the leadership level, we believe we are amazing, and we are listening to employees, and at the grassroots level, they don't believe that. Then what happens is the leaders who are capable of making a change will not lead a change, right? So the first step is to sometimes acknowledge that it seems like there might be a disconnect, or there might be something that needs to be changed. Because if you don't, then culture becomes the significant barrier for growth, right? As was very clear in this study done by McKinsey, right? So the reason I take one from Deloitte, one from McKinsey was, it doesn't matter like where you read. If you Google up and start, spend a couple of hours looking at cultural aspects of different parts of the world, different companies. These two are, McKinsey is known for strategy consulting. Deloitte often is more in the execution part of it, like making things happen. But both of them in their independent studies found there were gaps in what could be done, right? So, okay, so culture and behavior challenges become a big problem in the growth. So what? So why should we care? Well, because like you talked about, Ayman, culture is how we talk to each other, right? So culture is a lot of things. I mean, motivating employees, attracting and retaining our talent. Sometimes we don't know, but our employees, if you go back to what I talked about, social media or Quora or even word of mouth, if I am not happy in the company, or if I feel like I want to be in an innovative company and I'm not talking, I don't feel it's innovative, guess what happens? My friends know that, my friends' friends know that. So sometimes very directly, because I'll go on Quora and say something, or sometimes very informally, we stop attracting the kind of talent which will actually make it an innovative culture. So it becomes a very vicious cycle, and it's up to us to convert it into a virtuous cycle, which is working for us, right? Of course, if the culture is not progressive, not innovative, it's three minds, right? And so this whole organization structure, first I want to say that is the whole organization structure where you have leaders at the top and people at the bottom. I mean, if you think of it, when did it start? It actually started when railroads were created, right? There's a Erie Canal that was created in New York. So it's like 200 years old. And you have three people who are really rich, who are really visionary, who say, like Vanderbilt is the guy who built railroads, right? So Vanderbilt will say, this is the way I'm going to build it. And then he has tens of thousands of people building the railroads. So it's one brain and all hands and eyes, no other brains, right? That is how and when Erie Canal, again, these are stories of American Revolution. And actually it's true, because I've been so curious about understanding this whole phenomena that I went back in books on, why did this org structure come up? How did innovation, this whole notion of innovation come? What is the genesis of it? So org structure, the way we think, the way we make decisions, this whole hierarchical tree is very old. And now what's happening, and even more because of internet and because of data, especially machine learning, globalization, our ability to communicate doesn't matter. We are in multiple countries right now in different time zones and communicating. Bottom line is everybody at every level is capable of making a decision. It's no more the 3 people or the 10 people at the top. Everybody literally Every line of code, every accounting map that I do, everything I'm making a decision. So that whole notion of innovation at every step becomes very, very crucial. And it's a top-down, bottoms-up. It's an everywhere play, right? So it improves efficiency, increases productivity, and eventually, if we are productive, of course, it'll increase the profitability of the company, right? So, and of course, builds competitive advantage. And I'm assuming these are some of the plays why we are talking together. So I'm going to walk through again because there's a lot of good things we can talk about. But again, raise your hands or just jump in, unmute yourself and let's have a conversation anytime you feel the need to do that. Okay, just one more thing. So we are all aligned on this whole notion, which is like a soft word called culture. What is culture, and how do I know my culture is shifting? So there are so many aspects, and I say these things because again, even within Silicon Valley, if I get like 12 people in a room and say, let's talk about culture, it's going to be pretty diverse, right? And I've done these conversations. So since we are geographically apart, I want to make sure that we are aligned on how you think, feel, perceive culture, how I do. So once we're aligned, the communication is going to be easier amongst us as well, right? So there are so many aspects of culture, right? From the style of dressing to assumptions and my behavior at the bottom of the page here, right? So, and really the more visible ones are easier to fix. And the ones which are really the ones that move the needle are sometimes not even visible and hence not easy to change or move, right? So I want to instigate a culture of innovation. You can be forwardly about, I'll have a nice office which has some nice design boards, and we will facilitate meetings, and we will, let's talk about innovation. Every Monday morning, 9 to 10 is a meeting on how do we innovate, right? Easy to do, not as effective. Sometimes the choice of words matters. This one is proven because if the more the leaders facilitate, a language which fosters warmth around innovation, the faster it drives. So if every time my conversation as a leader is very micromanaging, or I'm only focusing on, this quarter, and this quarter, what are we doing? And it's going to very subconsciously, sometimes very consciously, send a signal that it's all about heads down, get things done right now. Or my language would be, this is great, let's talk about this whole year, let's talk about what else we can do, what are the other ideas, what am I not talking to you about? So my language, especially if I'm at a higher level, but even if I'm not at a higher level, you can be a leader and you can drive a change at any level. But it's the language. So if your language is cohesive, that phenomena of innovation becomes bigger than yours, because then you start building a team around it, whether it's informal or formal. Decision-making styles. So is it just the railroad style of, I woke up this morning, I'm the head of this team, and this is how you do it? Or is it decision-making, hey, I woke up this morning, this is a great idea that came to me, let's have a team meeting and let's talk about it. Or better yet, we have this problem. I have my ideas, but I would love to really understand from all of you what you are thinking. Or it could be each of us put our ideas on a chit so we don't bias each other. Let's open up our chits and now have a discussion and walk away with what is the right solution that we collectively feel is the right way. So all four of them are decision-making frameworks, but which one is more common in the organization, right? The whole gradient that we talked about was, is it one person thinking, or are we actually including the diversity that is in the team to think, not just do, right? That spectrum is what we have to walk through step by step to facilitate or change the culture where how we interact with each other is more innovative. Then I will say a couple more things. Underlying philosophies and preferences, hidden assumptions and values. Some of these we are born with, right? So my values and my assumptions is probably grounded in reality based on my experience in life. And it goes back to the family I was born in, what I saw when I was growing up, my exposure, my experiences, my environment, everything will define who I am and how I behave. yours, like Clemson's, if I can just talk about you, maybe yours is going to be very different. And I didn't ask you, where are you based, Clemson?
Actually, I'm in South Carolina, south of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
So I'm on the East Coast. And if I could, first, I really appreciate this layout of these 8 items. And I'd ask our participants to look at these 8 items as what is going to influence the executive team as they hear your presentation on your innovation. So we've got 3 teams that are working on some really robust innovation project prototypes and presentations. And we just went through a quick review of those 3 things. And it's interesting that the way we set up the presentation was just to answer the questions. But as we were answering the questions, they started telling the story of their innovation and why their innovation was important. And it's interesting that that story may address those bottom 2 points that are on this slide. What are the hidden assumptions that people are holding back that I'm going to look at your data this way, but I might listen to your story this way. I might listen to a story and really get engaged. What are the different preferences we need to be familiar with when we're talking both to people who will approve our project and our customers, okay? What do we need to know about them so that they become engaged and they lean forward, okay? And I just appreciate the way that the 8 items here go from things you can see to things you can't. And understanding, and I welcome your thoughts, Manisha, that the things you can see are usually what we focus on, but the things we can't see are how people make decisions.
Yeah.
And your thoughts about that?
My thoughts, 100%. And I think nothing. The reason it happens is, like, as human beings, we all want to feel like progressive and successful, right? So what I can see is easier for me to measure. It's easier for me to change. So like the first one, style of dressing, overnight I can mandate people or change it, right? And I will feel amazing about it because I made a change. The steeper you go, you have to, like, we have to work extra hard, to your question of what my data is telling me and what is the story you're projecting. In that same room now, I personally would have to work extra hard, right? Because I am not just presenting, I'm keeping an eye on what might be the perceptions of individual people. And in fact, in that kind of a meeting, if you have multiple folks, multiple senior leaders, one way of effectively moving the needle is to have a very informal, cup of coffee or a conversation, even a quick call with each of those executives. So you get a signal of what they might be perceiving in a much more simpler, easier setup, and then bring them together in a room, because by that time you already kind of know their hidden assumptions and values. And then you can actually say, okay, I understand each of you, I've addressed each of your hidden assumptions and values. We've had a one-on-one conversation. Now that all of you have overcome that, let's look at the data together, right? But in this process, what happened, let's assume you have 5 executives. You'll have to have 5 coffees. You'll have to work one-on-one with each of them to understand their assumptions and values, then address it back. So it might just be like maybe 10 hours of work minimum, right? Plus multiple email exchanges, plus multiple, if there's a executive who's like, I see the data, I really don't understand the story you're telling me. What happens then? Now I have to spend another week making sure that this executive buys into it. So in the process, we worked extra hard. It wasn't just one meeting. It was the meetings that happened before the meeting where things actually got done. And then the meeting was a facade, right? The final meeting was like, okay, all of you are speaking the same language, but really you are the glue, because they might be looking at their styles of dressing and their decision-making styles and all that, but you are the glue sitting in that room who understands the hidden assumptions and values, and you've actually become the shepherd of your own ideas and moved it forward. So any thoughts, any reflections from anybody? Okay, I'll move forward with.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So actually, it is the right way to pass on something or so, is to have like this pre-meeting or pre-conversation with the person that you are trying to get on board for the idea that you're trying to implement or so, to have this kind of conversation before, just to make sure that they are aligned or get their feedback before actually presenting it in front of the people. Do I get this part right?
Yes, and I do it all the time, like literally
Okay.
all the time. And sometimes, I mean, see, the thing is, two things happen. The only way I can make that meeting effective is by actually doing the homework myself, right? So imagine, let's say, I think it was Omar talking. Is that right, Omar?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So Omar, let's say you are my executive and I am talking to you. My first step is going to be go on LinkedIn, check up your profile, search the hell out of who is Omar Marai, know as much as I can about you, right? So, because what I'm trying to do is understand what you might be thinking, right? Then, if you're very senior up and I've never met you and I'm really trying my best to convince you of whatever proposal I have, I'll try to talk to people who know you pretty well. So open up as many doors as possible. So before my first meeting with Omar, it's not cold turkey. I understand a little bit about you. Then the more I learn about you, it's possible that I might tweak my language. Making a deck, changing a deck sometimes is much more work and you still don't know what might or might not work, but changing the language. The same slide I could present to a high schooler or a sixth grader and talk a very different language, right? But we are more professional, so our setting is very different. But I could talk to them in your class, make sure you dress up, blah, and then make sure you talk to your teacher. This slide will work. But for me to convince a middle schooler versus a high schooler versus a professional, the language is all that changes. So if I know Omar is a senior person working in Vodafone Egypt and he's really trying to move a culture of innovation, and for that he's undertaking a project which will exemplify how innovation can be done as an example. So that example becomes the state of the art and eventually moves the needle in Egypt Vodafone. Knowing all this, the way I will drive a conversation on the same slide with you is going to be very, very different. Right. So first, the meeting before the meeting, not only did I understand you more, I did a lot of homework, helped me eventually in that bigger room speak much more concise. Second, Omar and now have a relationship, because guess what? We have spent some time one-on-one, or I've gone through your personal executive or however. Now Omar knows a little bit about me. So when I'm in a room full of 20 people, at least 15 of them I know, and they know me. More important is they know me, right? The higher up we go, at a younger level, we normally say in school and colleges, we say, what matters is what you know, right? And then we start saying at some point, what matters is whom you know. And higher up you go, what matters is who knows you, right? So, so this whole step-by-step process, there's so much you benefit out of it. The meetings before the meetings, right? So by the time the final meeting happens, I know Omar, or I know Gary, I know Clemson, I know Ayman. For example, we have already have a one-on-one conversation. We've chuckled a little bit. Maybe you were completely against whatever I was proposing in the beginning. Maybe Clemson was, and I spent 2 weeks step by step nurturing him, maybe adjusting my proposal a little bit, so that by the time that big group happens, it's solved. The second thing that happens is, let's say Omar's idea was very different. Let's say Omar's idea was innovation is, I'm just giving examples, right? So let's say Omar's idea was, I think innovation is important, but we should facilitate it at the management level. So 3 managers will come up with cool ideas and the team will work on it. Let's just say this is a hypothetical example. And Ayman's idea is, no, I think we should make it really grassroots. We should have every team member come up with their own idea. In fact, we should have team members come up and create their own teams based on around their ideas and then huddle, right? And Manisha is like the nasty person in the room, and she says, no, I just don't want innovation. It just delays work, and let's just get it done right now. And I know exactly what I need because I'm ABC, whatever. 3 different people. For these 3 people to be in that final room looking at Omar's presentation, we will influence each other completely in the wrong way, right? And Omar has no control in the room at that point. So another perspective could have been, okay, I talked to Manisha, Manisha, you need to start understanding the value of innovation. What you're talking about is railroad time, not the technology era, and here is why. And maybe, you build that relationship with me. I'm now pretty impressed. Well, this guy is, very clear about what he wants, and he's helping me understand how to move forward, right? So basically, the bottom line is step by step, you've had these conversations with 3 of us. In the room, not only do you know each other, all the people in the room, or the most influential, or whomever you are able to catch hold of, at least some people you are able to understand. Plus, you've tackled their objections, which might have influenced the other person in a very easy environment for yourself. Like talking to 20 people or X number of people when you don't have much clue on what their reaction would be, becomes a very difficult task for ourselves. But tackling it one by one is very easy. And in fact, let's say if I speak up again, because having a conversation with you one-on-one, it's an easier setting, and fine, I get convinced. But now I'm back in the room and I see my colleagues and I see my seniors in the room, and now I'm like back to sorry, this whole innovation thing is really bad, I don't believe in it. Happens, right? We're human beings. You could easily say, Manisha, remember, we've already had a discussion on this one. Completely understand your point of where you were coming from. But the other perspective we also discussed was that it is changing times and maybe we should take a look at it. So I've heard you completely. That is definitely one way of thinking. Let's put it on the whiteboard or put it on the paper. Let's park that conversation for the purpose of this meeting. Why don't we focus on how we innovate better? So you made me feel heard. And you made me also publicly steer towards what you wanted to do. So I'm going to pause and see, did that answer your question? Did it help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other thoughts?
Manisha, can I comment? And is this more or less a part of the communication skills?
You can say that, Gary. But I think it's more than just communication skills, right? It's interpersonal. I mean, see, there are different ways of reaching. So if I could ask you, why did you think of it that way? Talk to me about what's going on in your mind when we are having this conversation. Why do you believe this is good communication?
Okay. When I'm planning for a meeting, so I'll have a background of the meeting attendees, taking into consideration what I want to put in the agenda and get the buy-in of these attendees. So part of my communication skills is to know the backgrounds of the attendees, the culture of their industries, how do they take decisions, take a coffee offline before the meeting, and know some more information that will help me around the table to enforce my not enforce, but to get the buy-in or to get a win-win situation within this meeting. Yeah, this was in my mind when I
perfect. And actually great. So thanks for that, Gary. And you actually reminded me of something which I didn't put on my slides today, but I think probably helpful. So when we communicate with each other, and there's enough research. If you want to, there's this professor, her name is Amy Cuddy. I'm happy to share the name through email. But she talks about communication, and her specific focus is on body language when you communicate. But the gist of it, and there are other books on communication also. The gist is when we communicate, right, especially in professional settings, we often focus a lot on our competency. So I am going to talk to you about this project, and let me tell you how amazing this idea is, and let me tell you how amazing the results are, right? That's really the way we talk. But if you go back, or if you reflect a little bit on when you're talking to a child, when you're talking to your buddies, when you're talking to your friends, when you're very free, and when communication flows freely when I trust somebody, like even if I'm not yet convinced about the competency. So it's the warmth in the meeting. It's the, do I trust you? If I trust you, Gary, the chances are I will give you much more leverage than if I don't trust you, right? So you're right. Like in this process of reaching out 101, I'm actually establishing trust, and I'm kind of building this cold call into a warm bridge. That the fact that I reached out to Omar, for example, for that meeting. I care for you, Omar. I care enough that I want you to understand what my proposal is even ahead of time, right? In the process, I will learn a little bit more about Omar. So the chances are at least that a trust relationship starts building up. We may completely agree to disagree. You and I might be completely on the opposite ends of the spectrum in the one-on-one meeting. And that's better than being opposite ends of spectrum in a group meeting, right? So I'm not saying this is going to be a bed of roses, but it will help you understand the problems you might face ahead of time, mitigate it ahead of time, and in a much more easier manner than with 20 people influencing each other. Now you have a mess to deal with. Someone wants innovation, someone doesn't want innovation. I have no relationship, they don't trust me. And I just presented to this group full of complete strangers, sort of, and for them, I was a stranger. We are basically step by step, not only sharing our competence with them, but we're also building trust. And a big part of communication, which is unfortunately not talked about in communication classes, is trust. It's not just my commas and my full stops and my slides and my competency. It is, I can talk. Okay, the first slide that I put up was subconsciously following this approach of like, let me help you understand who I am, because until 30 minutes back we were complete strangers to each other. So why should you listen to me, and why should this matter beyond the fact that I'm working with Silicon Valley Bank? I wanted you to trust me a little bit more, so we have an open-ended conversation, and that is what you're trying to achieve with those meetings before the meetings. Does that help, Gary?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sure.
Sure. Any other comments? Okay, we will move on. So, okay, so this is the slide I think I got about Vodafone, that the culture in which you are trying to move, right? And it's very nicely worded, first of all. So whoever did it and whichever team did it, it seems like very thought through. What I did was I picked up a few words that popped out to me as I was reading, especially what seems important to this team. So connecting with each other, you are a cross-functional group, so connection, cross-functional, of course, is important. I love the improving lives for all the kind of human beings around us, whether it's customers, colleagues, and communities. That will only happen if we build some level of trust, if we become trustworthy for each other. Belonging is important. This is again the whole concept of diverse ideas, right? So if that means it has to happen at the grassroots level, it cannot be top down. When creation, creativity, experimentation fail fast, these are all, I would say, great things to aspire, and seemingly difficult, but with some discipline, we are able to achieve it easily. So is there anything specific you would like me to talk about here? We can actually take the conversation in any direction you want today. Or I can, of course, keep following my slides as well. But is there anything specific that anybody wants to talk about? Like, how do I create? How do I experiment, or anything? No? Everything is easy?
Usually we have one challenge, especially for the experimenting part, and it's usually raised by the staff in the organization, because we are always trying to achieve two things which are always at the opposite sides, which is allowing people to experiment and try. However, at the other side, especially working in technology, we are not allowing people to make any mistakes to avoid impacting our live customers, because we have more than 45 million subscribers. If you perform one mistake, the whole subscribers will be impacted soon. So usually we have a challenge of how to allow people to experiment and learn and so on without any single impact on our customers. So it's very hard to achieve in the technology domain, especially.
Are you doing anything about it? Ayman, thank you for sharing that. How are you tackling that? Like, I mean, technology is R&D by nature, and I understand that the two ends of the spectrum. So innovate, but don't disturb the customers. And honestly, I think
exactly.
Both of them are fair. You don't want to disturb the customer and you want to innovate. How are you doing it today? Or what are you doing?
What you're trying to do, but still maybe we are not so successful. We are trying to break down any large chunk of software or applications. So whenever you do any change, it's at the end, you will have a partial impact, not full impact on the service. We are trying to do automations for testing, for example. So whenever any change is applied, there is a huge number of test cases to be automated and running in a slow time. We do all changes overnight, so most of the people are not active and so on. However, at the end, usually we are very cautious and we are very strict. So whenever it comes to having any, for example, any issue that happens to our customers is recorded, and we have to discuss it inside the meeting, and we have to justify what this issue happened and how we are going to prevent it in the future and so on. So we take it very strictly. So the staff usually is afraid of experimenting something new. We are always in this this challenge.
Can you do it?
Okay. What you described to me seemed a little bit like release management. Is that fair? Or okay, let me ask you this.
Something similar.
So
exactly.
one is okay. So see, one is so I would say if we think in terms of a spectrum for innovation, right? Like one is I will not make a change, which is not what you're saying. The second is we still have to make change without impacting the customer. So that I would say a proper release management discipline, how you define your releases, breaking big problems into small problems and then testing it very well ahead of time. You're making some changes step by step, but and with discipline and through cross-functional coordination, you're ensuring that the customers do not get impacted. But then I would just maybe bring your attention to when we talk about innovation, the third level would be there is something which could drastically change maybe the way subscription works for Vodafone, or let's say I eventually want to be able to stream online or something very different, radical, right? So while release management can help you step by step move towards a direction, how do I even test this completely new direction? Is that a concept at Vodafone? Is that something you are thinking of or doing already?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we are working this, but the most important part I'm referring to is from cultural side. And for example, should we hold like we do now? Should we hold a meeting and discuss every and each problem? Should we, or we should increase, for example, our tolerance for issues? And this is always the challenging part. Should we be more tolerant for problems, or we should be very strict to avoid or to reach the maximum possible customer satisfaction?
Okay, got it. So should we be more tolerant? I think you should be. I think we all should be. But let me walk you through with a couple of ways of how we can separate. I mean, I think they're basically two sides of the same coin, right? The only way I will innovate is if I have enough customers who will eventually benefit from my innovation. But my cost of innovation cannot be disturbing the current customers. So they're both fair asks. I need to quickly grab a tissue. My eyes are watery for some reason. So just give me a 30-second break and I'll be back.
Sure. Sure.
Oh no, Ayman, you have brought our speaker to tears. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
No, this is really helpful today. And Dare, thank you very much for your question. And I'm on your thoughts about experimentation, because that is what this program really is all about. And that's why I got so excited earlier as everybody was going through their projects, because some are very robust. And of course, we're going to have to look at that and focus those. But that's really to address the issue that you're bringing up, Iman, is to create that idea that innovation is okay and that experimentation is okay. And so as leaders inside of Vodafone, my question to you is, how are you going to get the word out and show those behaviors that experimentation is rewarded and accepted and desired across all of Vodafone? It's a real tough question to answer. Thank you, Manisha.
Yeah, thank you so much. And sorry, I don't know what happened, but okay. So Ayman, let's talk about how some other companies are solving it. And then I thought I can leave you with a framework, which I have actively implemented in a few companies. And I became the face of implementation, but this is grounded based on, what you learn through many of those meetings before the meetings across the valley, not just my own company. So there are some companies, right, who are in very different manners known to solve the problem that you're talking about, right? And I'll just quickly maybe give you a few of these stories on how they do. Will come. So Google is known, I believe it might have been the first Silicon Valley company to actually have a very innovative culture. And you might be already familiar, but like they've done everything from the search engine to actually the balloons which were flying somewhere in the Middle East to provide internet to the world, right? So they go crazy. Now, how do they do it? The leaders in Google, they have allocated Fridays. They call it like Innovative Fridays, or 20% of the time for anybody who wants to participate is available on innovative ventures. So some of the engineers there normally use their Fridays, however they do it, but they are allowed to. So it's a culture which leaders felt good about, and it works for Google. It doesn't work for everybody, but it's just an example. They were comfortable doing it, they did it, it works well for them, right? I mean, but I also want to say it doesn't mean everybody, like Amazon doesn't have that culture, and Amazon is pretty innovative, but they don't have Fridays, do whatever you feel like doing. So none of us have to feel compelled to do it. It's just something to keep in mind. LinkedIn makes it easy for anybody to file a patent. And what LinkedIn does is, if you have an idea, they would periodically instantiate these, hack days or hack weeks, or we call it in days, right? The whole notion of in days, and normally it was not every Friday, but it was one day a quarter, right? One day a quarter, you can work on whatever you feel like working. So there were days when I would go do some social work because I felt like doing that. There were days where I would huddle with a team to come up with some cool idea, something which is burning, which may be innovative, which may be a process innovation, whatever. And oftentimes we would reach out to different team members. So I actually filed a patent through one of those in days where I connected with a recruiter, an engineer, a designer. Like the bottom line is, and these were in US, in India, and in London, right? So as I was traveling, people came and shared some perspective on this should be better. It's like, all of you who are talking to me about how to fix it, why don't we get together and fix it? Or at least come up with a POC, an example of how to fix it, even if it's not the fix, because it was all theory. And this was my team telling me inputs on, when we recruit, it's great we're recruiting from outside team members, but I think there are some internal team members who are very interested in joining the team. Okay, great, one data point. Second, I have this amazing idea of converting our jobs listing such that it starts looking into internal employees as much as looks into external applications. Great product idea, right? So the bottom line is the more you meet, again, those meetings before the meetings and these informal conversations, the more diverse those conversations are. At some point, it takes some time because our brains also connect the dots once it has enough dots, right? So after some time, those dots started connecting in my head. And I said, okay, 5 of you, great ideas, stick to your own idea. But guess what? Here's the connection between the 5 ideas. We're going to do an in-day where we will hack it out. And we did it. And our patent lawyer loved it. And we filed a patent. And it actually became a product in LinkedIn, 5 years later. So that's another way LinkedIn does it. In Oracle, I'll walk you through with what I did for the company to shift. I mean, Oracle is a 40, actually almost 50-year-old tech giant, as you might be familiar, right? So we run our Oracle databases, and Java runs like a majority of enterprise businesses. You might be using some parts of Oracle. You may even not be familiar you're using Oracle, but there's a lot of stuff, the technology that Oracle builds and helps. Now, again, similar stuff. We have thousands of customers. We're in an enterprise, so probably not millions of consumers, but definitely thousands of companies which use us. Same challenge. You can't break it for them. But if you don't make anything new, eventually then other companies will take them over. So as we move from on-prem to cloud, if everything is moving to the cloud, and if this is too technical, I'll stop here. But the bottom line is there's this big shift happening in the enterprise market. Customers are moving. Oracle has to move, right? Everybody had to move, but we could not disturb. We still can't disturb any of the existing customers. How do you make it happen? And I'm going to finally leave you with McKinsey. McKinsey is a consulting firm, pretty big strategic consulting firm. They did a research as well. The link is at the bottom here. And they did if you want to innovate within a big company culture, how can you do that, right? So they also did a research, and they talked about it's a culture shift. Bottom line is it's a culture shift. It needs to be endorsed top down, especially for bigger companies like Vodafone. But it also needs to be embraced bottoms up, right? Because it's not one man's show anymore. So any thoughts here before we move on, and then I'll walk you through with some of the actual stuff that we can do. We can do a mini workshop or a conversation.
And Manisha, we've got about 7 minutes left.
I thought we were going to late 30, or are we only going to late?
Oh, just a moment. Arena? Arena? Because I had us going to the top of the hour.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's the schedule that I have. Let me double check. Please continue.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. So any thoughts, or I should just move on then?
I think Iman had something and I spoke over him.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
Fine.
It's all right. So Clemson, I'll keep going. You let me know. My understanding is it's still 8:30, but I can speed up. Okay. All right. So so innovation, I think we've talked about some of this stuff. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, and I really would like to make sure that if you have any questions, we get to them before. How did we do it, right? So let's talk about Ayman. I'm going to take your use case as the case study, and then try to address that on how you could instantiate that, and through what we have done. We've done a few times and it works, right? So first step is helping your leaders understand and align on the definition of what we're trying to change. So this is a definition which is, if you like Wikipedia or in the definition really is, it encourages and supports creative, sometimes even unorthodox way of thinking, right? So if we really say innovation, this word can mean so many things to so many people. But aligning on what does this really mean for each other is important. Otherwise, you might be solving for something and the leadership might be solving for another thing. So what I try to do, and this is an example slide, is I normally try to bring it to my leaders, normally with one small pilot done. So let's take the LinkedIn example that I talked about, where over one day, 5 of us came together. We came up with a few slides and few ideas on what can be done, right? It would be great if you create a product which actually allows internal people to apply, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is there is a sample, something you can talk about instead of just theory. And then I would put together something like this. I mean, you feel free to use this slide format. But what I would try to do is those meetings, before the meetings and then the final meeting, I'll say, hey, executive team, we've talked about innovation quite a bit. Let's talk about how we can drive the culture of innovation. And by the way, this is the way I define innovation, or I've understood too how innovation is defined in the industry. It essentially means it cannot just be top down. It has to encourage and support creative, sometimes seemingly unorthodox. So 7 people, or you have a huge team in Vodafone. Different people might come up with completely different ideas, and we have to encourage that for innovation to flow. If we are aligned on that, let's first think about why we want to innovate, right? So, and at every step, I would bring some information. So like, why do you guys care? What is innovation for you? Is it about team and culture? Is it about market leadership? And again, if you remember in the slide, we talked about there are so many different ways of reason for doing it. Are we doing it to motivate employees? Are we doing it to gain market share? Are we doing it to build something radically new? Are we doing it because the industry is pushing us to do something new, right? So because in COVID times, maybe things shifted for Vodafone and we need to continue innovating it, or we just need to remain a market leader. What is the reason for doing it? Because this why is where you can keep taking them back to whenever there's a struggle, right? So one customer cried. Why did that happen? I'm really sorry that one customer cried, but the 99 others did not, or the millions other did not. And remember, our goal was to motivate and retain or attract talent, or maybe it's market leadership, and that's a cost we paid for it, right? So really aligning on these basic principles is important. And this could become like the holy grail that you can keep coming back to every time there's a conversation to be had. And that conversation could be, let's plan next quarter, or it could be something really bad happened. Why did it happen? It doesn't matter. It's a cost we sometimes pay for doing something great. And again, I'm not saying we will make those mistakes happen. The thing is, if you're aligned on why we are doing, then what are we trying to do? So let me walk you through with this example. This is from real life situation with a real team and a real conversation with the executives in one of my companies. And I'm going to just leave it there. So the team said we need to drive a change of innovation. And of course, every executive has slightly different perspective on what they wanted to be done, right? So I had multiple meetings with each of them. At least on the surface, everybody said it's team and culture. So we aligned on why. And says, okay, to solve that problem, what are we going to do? So bottoms up innovation. That means we will inspire and empower individuals to perceive, share, and evolve their own ideas, not the management ideas, their own ideas, which could be radically different. And then especially the silent ones. So I get it, Ayman, you're leading engineering because of the comments you made. And oftentimes we have good ideas, but we have deliveries and deadlines to meet, so we're not able to share those. But this would be a great forum for us to make the silent heroes shine. How will we do it? So normally when we want to do solve a problem, there's often 3 things, right, that is required. The first is people need to be inspired. So for example, like, if you've had this culture where people are a little fearful, you're in the leadership role, you have other leaders you're working for, but imagine people on the grounds, right? If they have lived this culture where there's a little bit of fear of doing something new, you can't just wake up today and say, tomorrow onwards, we're going to make a change. Not going to happen. So we will have to step by step motivate them to say, yeah, we are making a very conscious change and we are encouraging people to participate. And I'm going to get a speaker. Like, I think, this example of what you're doing with the Silicon Valley is probably one such thing on like, how do I think different? So we have to do the same with other people. There are TED Talks available. So I did actually bring in external speakers. And it was very specifically designed program where it was addressing specific questions that I had garnered bottoms up through a survey. What is top of mind when you think of innovation? I don't think my manager will let me work on this thing. Trust me, came up first. Second problem, if I have cool ideas, many people say it will not work, right? So the unorthodox part of it. So if surveys don't work, have informal conversations. You just need to talk to 5 influencers who have small, big friend circles, address those 5 topics, like begin somewhere, right? So TED Talks. Second is, once we have encouraged them to speak up, like, or you guys start, this team could be the initial TED talkers or the initial folks who are submitting their ideas, doesn't matter. The second is then an easy way for us to collect these ideas bottoms up, right? So what are the different things you want to work about? So we can do it very, very open-ended, like Google does it, where you just work on whatever you feel like working because we are allocating your time. And if it is not useful for Vodafone, that's fine. Some companies don't want that because, what if you start making like a balloon or something, or like a Tesla engine, and Vodafone has nothing to do with it. So what they want to do is, when you're at work, we would like you to think of something new, but here are the boundaries in which we would like you to think about. So I'm trying to look at a new customer acquisition channel, or I'm trying to look at a new, way of connecting my routers, or it could be a new programming guide, whatever is the reason or the parameters for your innovation. We can define it, and we'll say, well, here is a forum. It could be, I've seen wikis, it could be a form, it could be some stuff that you build, and you call it internal idea labs. Basically a repository where people can submit their ideas on what they want to do. And if you want to go very manual, put up a box on your desk and say, put in chits with your names or unanimous in that chit on what you would like to do. And then guess what? In an all hands, we will look at these chits and we'll tell you the 5 winners who will be allowed to hack going forward. So you can put boundaries, or you can make it open-ended. That depends on what you're comfortable with and what your leadership is comfortable with. And then finally, we give them time to actually make that thing happen, right? So it can be a very contained exercise. I mean, we are giving you 1 week to work on your ideas and no questions will be asked. You don't get to work on the main code line. Set it up, do it rookie, maybe use open source. All you're doing is proving that concept so that if it is worth it, we will figure out a disciplined way in which we can make it part of the real code that we release, right? And then we have to have some principles, and these principles I updated, based on what your culture guide looks like. So there's a lot of mention of experimenting. There's also a mention of we want to innovate, we want to do something new, we want to take care of our communities, our employees, and our customers, colleagues, and community, right? So they need to have fun doing all this stuff. If there's a fear of the Lord, what if I fail? Nobody will participate, right? So this whole thing of it's a week where you get to work on your ideas in this constraint that we talked about. After you've been inspired, go have fun. It's okay if you fail in that week, but if you succeed, maybe it'll impact what Vodafone's next version looks like. So that's a nice framework, and the reason for doing it first yourself, like I would sit myself and jot down my thoughts, then I would have my first meeting and I'll talk to that person and say, well, talk to me, does this align with you? And hence on, I will talk to every executive. Then I'll call a meeting and say, I met each of you. This is how we fill the slide together. Let's align on what this whole innovation thing looks like for us, and how would we do it going forward. And once we align, this becomes our, credo. This becomes our go-to document for every time we have a challenge. So I'm going to pause and ask 2 things. Clemson, how much time do I have? And Ayman, is it resonating?
For me, sure, yeah. Thanks for your reply.
Okay.
And Manisha, we're going to go for about 10 more minutes, okay, till about midway, till about 15 after the hour. And I just want to put out to the group that this type of plan that Manisha is going over may be a real good idea as you start to put together your presentations. As we go into the development of your presentations and then the implementation, this might be a really good way to understand all those things you can't see that we talked about earlier. So just a thought about how we might use this information. So Manisha, thank you very much. We'll go about 10 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so basically what the second piece of doing this could be, sometimes, remember in my previous slide, I was like the nasty Manisha who did not believe in innovation. Sometimes we have that also, right? Like sometimes you could have other ideas which might actually derail you from what you're trying to achieve. And I learned it the hard way that again, you're trying to maneuver in one direction. If we don't address the other concerns or the other thoughts of some of these other decision leaders and executives, it'll keep coming back. It'll keep coming back and keep distracting the plan that we formulate. So see if it works in your environment. But what I believe works, and this, I think I've seen it working almost in every team I've tried with, is you can throw all sorts of ideas, right? There's always this bucket list behind this line where anything and everything works. I mean, you can literally say innovation, why? Well, I don't really think innovation works. You will put it. It's a laundry list. But whatever is above the line is what we all agree to, right? So I've heard you, but when we put together, when we did the meeting with all the leaders, decision makers in the room, we debated it and we decided that's something for future. This is what we are going to do. So yeah, innovation could have meant leapfrogging the competition. It might have meant stay relevant. It might have meant do something cool. It might have meant whatever. We are not right now doing something cool. We are actually focusing on team and culture. And it is still on the slide, right? So every time you bring it up and that person but how about that? Remember we talked about it? It's on the slide. Maybe next year when we come back and decide our plan again, we'll talk about it. So two things, right? Building trust. Communication is building trust, making people heard, and then moving them in a direction you want them to move in. So this slide does all three. The meetings before the meetings and the meeting built trust, created this camaraderie. This section here is, I'm making you feel heard, but it's not just about you and me, it's about the bigger group. We all decided some of these things we can't chew, otherwise nothing will happen. So from an execution perspective, this is the timeline. I just wrote 2021 focus here. It could be a quarter, it could be whatever your focus is for right now. This is all we are looking at. And this is all we will look at eventually. And by the way, given all that, what are the next steps? So this is vision and this is execution on the side step. That really means I need to go recruit the team which will help me do that. I mean, these are ideas, right? It could be, that means we're going to experiment this with the 3 projects, or we will go and talk to Silicon Valley, Innovation Center and talk about it. Whatever it means for you, write down that also. So why we are doing, what we are doing, how we're going to do it, what are the principles we will follow, and what does it mean for 2021? Everything is one slide. That slide becomes your holy grail for everything. But reaching this slide is probably going to be like a couple of months, work, because there's a lot of work. So this becomes your executive summary of your how we will drive the innovation culture. I'm going to move on and talk about a few more things which are important, I think. Great, everybody aligned on the slide. Your meeting is over. You walk out and feel good about yourself. What next, right? Now you're alone. I think I see quite a few of you on the call. So hopefully you're not alone. All of you are going to do it together. But then I would start calling these people ambassadors. So when you have a team, remember language matters, right? So we have 8 innovation ambassadors who are going to spearhead this conversation. And we will always be available to anybody who did not participate in this program yet. So all of you can see yourself as the innovation ambassadors, because you got trained, you have some ideas, you've proven yourself, and you can go back to Vodafone, to your team, team leads, and say, well, this is the team. If anybody has a doubt or a skepticism or a question, come and talk to us. But plug yourself as, something. And I like the word ambassador, because ambassador is just, I believe in something and I'm going to vouch for that, right? It's a very friendly term. You're not calling yourself the innovation leaders or the innovation centers or nothing like that. I'm just an ambassador. I'm an agent of change, And by the way, these agents then flock together. So all of you become one team, moving in one mission instead of us feeling individual and alone in that mission, right? So multiple, these are subtle things. And again, a lot of theory and a lot of practicality went into making these slides happen over years of time. So making a change needs a team, because there will be days when one of us will feel very lonely and low, and we will feel like it's not worth it because it's going to be hard, right? So having that team and say, hey, today my day was really nasty. This guy did not listen to me. How was your life? It helps. And there's like little things help. because we are humans at the end, right? Because what we're trying to do is we are navigating ambiguity. Nothing is super clear, right? You have a very clear mission. We need to remain humble and high energy, because if we lose it, everybody else will lose it. We are the agent of change, and we need to be collaborative, curious. I mean, these are again terms that come up with when you talk about innovation, right? And then just moving it forward, that single list, there are different ways we can do it. So for inspiring, as I mentioned, first step is we need to go beyond the ambassadors. Let's say we are 10 ambassadors. Okay, we believe in it. We've got to encourage the next 100. Okay, the TED Talks, conversations work. You guys could be the TED Talks. You guys could use your projects as the experiments, as the examples, right? Then a forum for them to share ideas. There are different ways of doing it. Always helps to make it a little formal, very informal. You know, even if it's a very informal innovation program, formalizing it with some guidelines makes it real for professionals, for team members, right? So, and keep it very lightweight. So then I would say, well, we actually did it. We instantiated an idea labs in which we actually used like you have community forums where we were using it for external stuff only to talk to our customers. And we said, why don't we make a copy of that and make it internal? It's only open if you are at Vodafone.com. Nobody else can even log into that system. So very simple security check. You log in and you share your idea, then it's open for all the Vodafone employees. Share your ideas, but as long as, and then we had tags in that. So the tag was what the management had agreed this whole focus is going to be. It's about new customer acquisition. It is about industry shift. It is about culture. It is about people feeling, they're belonging, any of the cultural tenets that you have, you can bring it up. So that way, if people have a very subtle way of knowing that I can't come start talking about beautiful balloons in air because there's no tag that follows there, right? So you have to kind of in a nice way govern this ideation. And then finally a forum for them to hack it, whether it's a hack week, whether it's a go join a class, take this, however you want to execute on it, you do it. You also make it very clear that we are individual ambassadors. We are nowhere trying to own this whole program, become the judges for what is innovation. We are in agents of change, because that humility actually moves things forward much faster. And then I have a few examples here of what basically I'm going deeper and deeper to make it real for you. Okay, so just a quick check. Any thoughts? Otherwise, I'll move on.
We got about 2 more minutes, Manisha.
Okay, cool. So I'll just quickly move forward, right? So internal idea labs, again, make it real. How are we going to measure it? So how many participants, how many ideas came in, how many roadmaps? Because those executives would like to see some results that they can take to their leaders. It's always about a communication up and down, right? If you make your leaders successful, they would love to fund you with your ideas. If it's loosey-goosey, they don't know how to talk to their leaders and they will maybe not fund it, right? So I'll have an objective for everything we discussed so far. Well, what is the objective for Idea Labs? Inspire and empower. Okay. Which is the team which is going to lead it? It's going to be some ambassadors, some other team members with an executive sponsor. How are we going to measure it? And then what are the things we will do? And then we'll find an owner and status. So basically you're making this a real program, pretty much like you do anything in your company. And now people know what you're talking about. And the goal of this was driving grassroots innovation. Then I talk about oftentimes this confusion on innovation is only engineering led. And in engineering, the concept is often I've heard complete orthogonal. Well, they'll say, I would have loved to, but I'm not allowed to work on my ideas. So I like to tell them, well, innovation can be anywhere. It's a new way of doing something. It could be any team you are in, you can innovate. It doesn't matter, right? And if you believe you can't, make a team with different people from different organizations and do it together. Doesn't matter. Like each of you it becomes a cohesive team. I'm fast tracking it, so we finish this thought within the time I have. And then finally, Hack Week was just one perspective. How do we make it happen? Here are just some ideas of I just made it real with some names, etc. Fake names, but make it as real as possible so it becomes a program. This is a grassroots innovative program. We are going to lead. We will have ambassadors. There will be ideas. There will be talks, blah, blah, blah. And in 60 seconds, I want to show you one thing, which Google it up yourself if you haven't. But there is this guy called Osborne. He has rules of brainstorming. Check it out. I think it came up in some of the comments I wrote down as you were talking. But ideation needs to follow some principles, which if not followed will completely kill it before you start. And really those rules, this guy Osborne talks about very nicely. So just Google him up. But the bottom line is, let me just come to the, yeah. So basically the 4 rules are: you cannot judge the moment the idea landed because it is in somebody's head. So let it be, otherwise you're going to kill diversity and flexibility even before it starts. The second is ideas always have to be about a lot. If I have 3 ideas and I start innovating, you probably have the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th idea, which you killed before you even started, right? So that idea lab concept, or allowing yourself time to dump your thoughts on a piece of paper even before you start, or allowing your teams to do the same is very helpful. The third is radical. Radical is good. So when I'm managing my customers, I don't want to be radical because I don't want to disturb those customers. But when I'm ideating, I want to be, it's a thought on a piece of paper. Go as crazy as you want because you can always come back and converge. And the fourth is leapfrog. So innovation is best done exponential, then incremental, but does not mean that incremental innovation doesn't make sense. So what I mean to say is, I am writing a code to do A. Tomorrow I can enhance the code to do A dash and then B and then B dash. That's a good way of doing it. It does not inspire many of us. It keeps the business lights on. In parallel, if I can start doing completely crazy things, so I'm doing A, start of Z, start of alpha, beta, gamma, something completely radical. Think of some things your competition has done and we thought we could never do. How can we beat the competition 10 years from now? Once you can think of it, you can bring back in reality today and start doing it using this framework step by step. So and with that, I believe, sorry.
No, Manisha, this right here is so helpful because the teams are starting to move into the ideation phase of their projects. We did some clarification today. We got a great comment from Garhi that, yeah, this is basically what we were doing earlier. We were doing a sort of hackathon, except we weren't doing it, basically digitally. We were doing it virtually over Zoom. And this part right here for all the teams is where you might want to go next as you generate those ideas. Now that we've had some clarification, we probably need more, but we've had some clarification on the projects. Now is where we get into those ideas about what are we really going to do and how are we really going to do it. And these Osborne rules, just like Manisha is saying, are very critical for getting the best ideas out, getting as many ideas out as you can, and the crazy ideas. Maybe our customer isn't the client. Maybe our customer is the agent that is talking to the client. That's really who we need to look at. Those types of radical ideas. And then maybe our agent may be an AI. Maybe our agent is a robot that we need to train to be able to talk to that client in a way to position the product in a positive and a proactive manner. Totally leapfrogging things forward. Manisha, I'm afraid our time is up for today. Do we have any last questions from anybody for Manisha? This has been a very powerful conversation so far today. Any questions at all?
I take it as no.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Cool, Clemson. Then I'm going to drop off and good luck for the rest of the day.
Manisha, thank you very much. We certainly appreciate your insights and the structures that you provided for us as well. I know that groups will be using them as we go forward. So thank you very much for that.
I'm so glad, and have a wonderful day, evening, good night, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to. I'm happy to help you a little bit on and off, but we can be in touch. Take care then.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye. I am trying
Bye.
to figure out how to leave now. Okay.
Bye-bye.
And thanks everybody for staying with us. It's been a really exciting morning. I think we've got a good jump on the projects, and feel free to connect with Manisha on LinkedIn. She does have some really good insights into this innovation process. Want to thank you all for staying with us, and we'll see everybody again next week on the 9th when we are going to be talking with Weston McMillan from eBay. And he will be continuing this idea of innovation culture and also this idea of ideation. and how we get those ideas on the table. So thanks a lot for being with us all the way through, and we will see everybody next Tuesday on the 9th of March. We'll see you then.
Thank you, Clemson.
Thanks
See you.
a lot. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.